Hello, and welcome back to Divorce in Plain English UK. I'm Vincent, and this is Chapter 3. In the last episode, we talked about who gets what, and how courts in England and Wales look at fairness, not just a simple 50-50 split. Today, we're looking at the biggest asset in most divorces, the family home. For many of us, the house is more than bricks and mortar. It's where your children grew up, and where you held everything together, even after the relationship had broken down. So when divorce comes, the question, what happens to the house, is not just financial, it's deeply emotional. Quick reminder, I'm sharing my own experience and general information. I'm not a solicitor, and this is not legal advice. Every case is different, so please speak to a professional about your own situation. In my divorce, the family home became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. I was paying the mortgage on a joint loan, on a high variable rate, with no real communication or agreement about the future. I couldn't afford to move out and pay for somewhere else, but I also couldn't keep living in that tension forever. If you're in a similar position, you're not alone. Broadly, there are three main options for the family home. The first option is one person stays and buys the other out. That usually means taking over the mortgage in your sole name and paying your ex a lump sum, or giving them a larger share of another asset instead. To make this work, a lender has to be happy that you can afford the mortgage on your own, and there has to be enough equity in the property to give your ex their share. On paper, this sounds simple. In practice, it can be very hard if one person has been out of work, has poor credit, or if interest rates are high. In my case, my ex could not get a mortgage in her own name. I offered to buy her out so I could stay in the house and get us on a better deal. At first, she agreed, then later told the court she felt pressured and pulled back. That kind of stop-start is draining and it keeps you stuck. The second option is selling the house and both of you moving on. This can give a clean break. The mortgage is paid off, the remaining equity is divided in shares you agree or the court decides, and each of you finds somewhere new to live. For some couples, especially where both can work and there are no very young children, this can be the most realistic route. But selling is not always straightforward. You may not agree on timing or price, or even on putting the house on the market. If the market is weak or the mortgage rate is high, you might feel like you're losing out by selling now. And if your children are settled in local schools, the idea of them leaving their home can feel like one loss too many. The third option is some form of sharing or deferred sale. Sometimes the court will order that the house stays in joint names for a period of time. For example, the parent who is the main carer for the children might stay in the property until the youngest reaches a certain age or finishes full-time education. After that, the house is sold and the proceeds are split according to an agreed formula. On the surface, that sounds like a compromise. It can give the children stability for a few more years, but it also means you're financially tied to your ex for a long time. You may find it harder to get another mortgage, and you're still exposed to changes in interest rates, repairs, and all the usual risks of home ownership, but now in a broken relationship. In my situation, being stuck on a high-rate joint mortgage has had a huge impact. I had to keep working flat out just to service the debt, while my ex was not contributing financially. There was no clear plan about staying, selling, or buying out. That kind of limbo is one of the reasons I created the Financial Remedy Roadmap. One of the first things I encourage you to do is get a realistic picture of your housing options. First, could either of you realistically afford the current mortgage on your own, at today's interest rates, once child maintenance and other commitments are taken into account? Second, what would it cost for each of you to rent or buy something smaller, either in the same area or a little further away? Sometimes the numbers show that both of you moving is actually the only sustainable option, even if it feels painful. Third, how old are your children and what do they need right now? Courts put the children's welfare first. If staying in the home gives them stability, that matters. But stability also includes being able to afford the basics without constant crisis. All of this links back to the overall pot we talked about in Chapter 2. The house does not sit in isolation. If one person keeps more of the equity in the home, the other might receive more from pensions, savings, or other assets to balance things out. A settlement is a package, not a set of separate decisions. If you're listening to this and feeling stuck, please remember, you don't have to figure it all out alone, and you don't have to do everything today. Start by getting information. Get an up-to-date mortgage statement. Get at least one realistic valuation of the property. Look at rental prices in your area. The more facts you have, the less space there is for fear. In the Financial Remedy Roadmap, I walk through practical steps for gathering these figures and using them in your financial disclosure and negotiations. It's not about pushing you towards staying or selling. It's about helping you understand what each option might mean for your monthly budget and your long-term security. If at any point you feel stuck or you just want to talk this through with someone who has been there, you can reach out to me directly via the contact details on my Gumroad page. I'm more than happy to speak with you and share my opinions or views based on my own journey. Just so we're clear, I'm not a lawyer and I can't give you legal advice. I can only speak to you from my own personal experience of going through divorce and dealing with the financial side of it. To recap this chapter, the family home is usually the biggest asset and often the biggest emotional weight in a divorce. The main options are one person buying the other out, both selling and moving on, or some form of shared or deferred sale. Each comes with trade-offs, and the right answer depends on needs, affordability, and the overall financial picture. In the next chapter, we'll look more closely at pensions and why they're so often ignored, even though they can be worth as much as or more than the house itself. Thank you for listening to Divorce in Plain English UK. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit. And if you want a calmer, more organized way to approach the money side of your divorce, you can find my ebook, The Financial Remedy Roadmap, on Gumroad. I'll talk to you in the next episode.